The merchants of death and pleasure, Epstein, Khashoggi, Soghanalian, and the shadow state that rules the world. In the shadowy depths of geopolitics, there exists a hidden infrastructure, a state within the state, where black budgets, dirty wars, and untraceable money form the arteries of real power. At the crossroads of this dark web stand three figures who symbolize different eras but operate under the same logic: Sarkis Soghanalian, Adnan Khashoggi, and Jeffrey Epstein. One dealt in arms, one in logistics and bribery, the other in sex and blackmail. But behind their glamorous facades lay a terrifying truth. They were all instruments of the same clandestine machinery, run by intelligence agencies, elite banks, and a cartel of permanent war profiteers. The Cold Warrior, Sarkis Soghanalian, and the Iran-Contra black market. Soghanalian wasn't just a prolific arms dealer. He was the unofficial quartermaster of U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East. His operations, sanctioned and protected by the CIA, armed Iraq during its war with Iran and funneled U.S. and French weapons to brutal regimes worldwide. His ties to CIA Director William Colby and Vice President George H.W. Bush made him untouchable until he became politically inconvenient. When the Iran-Contra affair exploded, Soghanalian took the fall, serving a symbolic 6-month sentence. In reality, he was sacrificed to protect the higher command, the Bush apparatus that had orchestrated the illegal arms for hostages deal and funneled proceeds to the Contras via secret channels. One of those channels was a now notorious financial institution, BCCI. BCCI, the bank that knew too much. The Bank of Credit and Commerce International was not a bank in the traditional sense. It was the financial sewer of the global underworld, used by the CIA, Mossad, MI6, cartels, arms dealers, and dictators. Its primary function was to launder billions in black money, from heroin grown in Afghanistan to arms sold to despots in Africa and the Middle East. BCCI laundered funds for both Soghanalian and Khashoggi, and more than likely was used to facilitate parts of Epstein's financial cover. Through its successor networks, such as HSBC, the Rothschild-linked megabank later caught laundering billions for Mexican drug cartels and never truly punished. Adnan Khashoggi, cargo planes, alcohol, and covert cash. Khashoggi was the showman of the operation. While Soghanalian moved behind the scenes, Khashoggi flaunted his wealth in Marbella and jet-set society. But he, too, worked closely with the CIA. His cargo planes, supposedly for arms shipments, were often used to transport alcohol into Saudi Arabia, and, as insiders like Soghanalian hinted, likely drugs as well. The CIA's involvement in the drug trade is not a theory, it is historical fact. From Air America in Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War, to the crack cocaine epidemic in Los Angeles traced back to Contra-linked networks, the agency has long used narcotics as an unofficial revenue stream for its off-book operations. And that leads us to Pan Am Flight 103, and a truth so dangerous, even Mossad insiders were silenced. Pan Am 103, the price of knowing too much. On December 21, 1988, Pan Am Flight 103 exploded over Lockerbie, Scotland, killing 270 people. The official story blamed Libyan agents, and Muammar Gaddafi was pressured into accepting responsibility and paying restitution. But the truth, according to Juval Aviv, an ex-Mossad agent and counterterrorism expert, was far more sinister. Aviv had been recruited by Mossad to lead Operation Wrath of God, the retaliatory campaign against the Munich Olympic terrorists, immortalized by Spielberg's Munich. He later worked as a security consultant for Pan Am and conducted an internal investigation into the bombing. His findings? Pan Am was being used by the CIA to fly heroin out of the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon and from Afghanistan, part of a long-standing operation involving CIA assets, Middle Eastern traffickers, and protection deals with informants. According to Aviv, a drug mule on Pan Am 103 was allowed to bypass security in exchange for information, but that flight was compromised. Aviv publicly warned of a possible security breach weeks before the bombing. He was ignored. After the disaster, Aviv was threatened by the CIA, silenced in the media, and continues to live quietly in New York City, knowing that Lockerbie was a cover-up of a far bigger operation. Jeffrey Epstein, The evolution of the blackmail asset. While Sarkis and Khashoggi were instruments of physical war, Jeffrey Epstein was the psychological weapon of a new era. He didn't just gather secrets, he manufactured them. Through his trafficking ring, he entrapped politicians, royals, scientists, and billionaires, creating a leveraged database likely shared with Mossad, the CIA, and British intelligence. His mysterious wealth, just like Khashoggi's and Soghanalian's, likely came from deep state protection and covert operations. His ties to banks like HSBC, long used as laundering vehicles for illicit funds, mirror the BCCI model. And like them, Epstein was expendable. When the heat grew too strong, he was eliminated in prison under absurd circumstances, his fate echoing the quiet downfall of Soghanalian and the erasure of BCCI. But the system that created him did not die. It simply moved its operations elsewhere. Conclusion: a pattern of protected criminality. Across decades and continents, a single pattern emerges: shadow networks empowered by intelligence agencies, protected by elite bankers, and fueled by drugs, arms, and sex. From Soghanalian's weapons deals, to Khashoggi's cargo smuggling, to Epstein's sexual blackmail, the tools may differ, but the architecture of control remains. The CIA's use of Pan Am to ship drugs, the silencing of Juval Aviv, the cover-up of the Iran-Contra affair, and the disgraced collapse of BCCI, all point to one truth. A supranational criminal network exists above the law, where banks, spies, and oligarchs cooperate to shape world events while leaving the public in a carefully crafted illusion. If you want to understand global power, don't look to elections or speeches. Look to the bodies in the jet wreckage, the burned files in Langley, and the smiling arms dealers sipping champagne in Marbella. That's where the story really begins.